Have you ever heard a sound in the dead of night that made your blood run cold? Some mournful cry that seems to carry the weight of all the world's sorrow. For centuries, in the misty green hills of Ireland, such a sound has been a terrifying omen of death. It's the cry of the Banshee, and tonight we're going to uncover the horrifying truth behind this legendary spirit. So, what exactly is a Banshee? The name itself comes from the Irish bean suit, which translates to woman of the fairy mound. According to folklore, she is a female spirit whose piercing shriek, or keening, foretells the imminent death of a family member. But she doesn't just cry for anyone. The Banshee is deeply connected to specific, ancient Irish families, the ones with an O or a Mac in their names, like the O'Neills, O'Briens, O'Connors, and Kavanaghs. If you belonged to one of these noble lineages, hearing her cry meant a loved one was about to pass from this world. The descriptions of the Banshee vary wildly, which only adds to her mystique. Some say she appears as a beautiful young woman with long, flowing silver hair and a shimmering gray cloak. Her eyes are said to be fiery red from centuries of weeping. Others describe her as a haggard old woman, a crone with tangled white hair, a single nostril, and long, jagged teeth. She might be seen as a pale washerwoman, a bee-nag, down by a stream, washing the blood-stained clothes of the person about to die. Regardless of her form, her presence is always a prelude to tragedy. But where did this belief come from? It's not just a spooky ghost story told around a campfire. The tradition has roots in a very real and very poignant Irish custom. In ancient Ireland, keening women, or immen coined, were professional mourners. These women were hired to sing sorrowful songs called laments or canad at funerals. Their powerful, wailing cries were believed to guide the soul of the deceased to the afterlife and were a respected part of the grieving process. It's thought that over time, as these traditions faded, the stories transformed. The very real keening woman became a supernatural harbinger of death, her human voice evolving into the otherworldly shriek of a spirit. So, the Banshee isn't a malevolent entity. She's not here to cause death, but to announce it. She is, in essence, a spectral mourner, a family guardian whose grief is so profound it transcends the veil between worlds. Her cry is an expression of sorrow, not a threat. Think about it. In a time before modern communication, before you could get a phone call from a hospital, this supernatural warning might have been seen as a strange sort of comfort. It was a way to prepare for the inevitable, a spiritual heads-up that a family was about to face a loss. Now, let's get into some of the truly chilling accounts. One of the most famous stories involves King James I of Scotland. In the 15th century, a woman, believed by many to be a seer, or perhaps a mortal banshee, appeared before the king. She warned him of his impending murder, but he dismissed her. Shortly after, he was assassinated. This story solidified the banshee's role, not just as a mourner, but as a prophetess of doom. Another well-known tale comes from the 17th century, from the memoirs of Lady Anne Fanshawe. While staying at a castle in Ireland, she was awakened one night by a ghastly, supernatural scream from outside her window. Looking out, she saw the spectral figure of a woman with pale skin and reddish hair. The next morning, she was told that a member of the castle's family had died in the night. The host explained that it was a common occurrence for this spirit to appear and announce a death in their family. He said the spirit was the ghost of a woman who had been wronged by one of his ancestors centuries ago. Her baby drowned in the moat below that very window. Her spirit was now bound to the family, her eternal grief tied to their fate. This brings up another fascinating layer to the Banshee legend. Sometimes, they are not just generic spirits, but the ghosts of specific ancestors. It could be the spirit of a young woman who died tragically, a murdered maiden, or a mother who passed away in childbirth. Her personal tragedy binds her to her bloodline, and she becomes the family's personal messenger of death. This makes the legend even more personal and heartbreaking. It's not just a random ghost, she's family. Even in more recent times, people claim to have encountered the Banshee, Reports from the Irish countryside still surface, stories passed down through generations. People speak of hearing an unearthly wail drift across the fields on a still night, only to learn the next day of a neighbor's passing. One account from the 20th century tells of a family who heard the cries for 3 consecutive nights. They were terrified. The third day, they received a telegram informing them that their son, who had immigrated to America, had died in an accident. The Banshee's cry had crossed the Atlantic Ocean. But what could explain these experiences? Skeptics, of course, have their own theories. The most common explanation is misidentification. The sound of certain animals, like the eerie call of a barn owl or the scream of a vixen fox, can easily be mistaken for a human-like wail, especially on a dark, windy night when your imagination is already running wild. Wind howling through a keyhole or across certain rock formations can also produce strange, mournful sounds. Then there's the psychological aspect. The concept of the banshee is deeply ingrained in the Irish psyche. In times of stress or anxiety, especially when a loved one is ill, the mind can play tricks. An ambiguous sound can be interpreted as the very thing you fear most. It's a form of auditory pareidolia, where our brain finds a familiar pattern, in this case, a human crying random noise. Yet, for those who believe, and for those who claim to have heard her, these logical explanations fall short. They will tell you that the cry of the banshee is unlike any other sound on earth. It's not just a scream. It's described as a sound filled with such intense sorrow and despair that it penetrates your very soul. It's a sound that you don't just hear with your ears, but feel with your entire being. The legend of the Banshee is a powerful reminder of how folklore can encapsulate our deepest human experiences: love for family, the pain of loss, and the fear of death. She is not a monster to be hunted, but a tragic figure to be understood. She represents the enduring bond of family, a bond so strong that it cannot be broken, not even by death itself. Her cry is a lament, an echo of grief that reverberates through generations. So, the next time you find yourself on a quiet, moonlit night and you hear a strange, sorrowful sound carried on the wind, pause for a moment. It might just be an owl or the wind playing tricks on you. Or it could be something much, much older. It could be the mournful cry of a guardian spirit, a woman of the fairy mound, fulfilling her solemn duty. The horrifying truth behind the banshee isn't that she's a monster, but that she's a reflection of our own profound capacity for grief. What do you think? Is the banshee a real supernatural entity, or a fascinating piece of folklore born from ancient traditions and psychological phenomena? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this dive into dark legends, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more. Stay curious and sleep tight.